Are you ready?
You know what that means.
Think you can tell us what to do?
Week 6 is upon us. Week 5 went by without a hitch. Welcome to the second installment of BirdGang Weekly on Thunderstorm Media. My man Derek McCauley is my guest. Let's get it. We got a lot to talk about. The Cowboys fans have lost their minds, but that's nothing new. We'll pick on them a little bit. The Washington Redskins are doing their best to be the 90s version of the Oakland Raiders. They just gave the axe to their head coach of a little over 5 seasons. We'll go ahead and count this one. That would be 6. The longest tenured head coach of the Daniel Snyder era. Jay Gruden is gone. He'll be replaced by Bill Callahan. You remember him, don't you? He was also with the dysfunctional Raiders. You remember the quote, "We've got to be the dumbest team in football." The veterans didn't like that. Neither did some of the rookies. He went on to Nebraska. I'll be honest with you. To figure out where Bill Callahan's been over the last 10 years, I had to cheat. I had to use Google. I had to use Bing. And I'm still a little bit confused about his coaching, about his resume, about him actually. But he'll serve in the interim while Jay Gruden is gone. God help you if you're a Redskins fan. Because I can say this. Unlike the Cowboys, I can give Redskins fans credit for one thing. They're very loyal. Cowboys fans are just kind of those guys who they love the blue and the gray when things go right. They abandon ship when things go wrong. You know I'm right. We're also going to get into week 5 with the Eagles. 10 sacks. Orlando Scandrick shine. The running game did its thing. And yet, after a 10-sack performance, I don't think I've ever seen this. I've never seen an NFL team come up with 10 sacks and nobody seems to care. With that, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to BirdGang Weekly, and we welcome to the broadcast via the Thunderstorm Media Hip Hop and Entertainment Sports and Entertainment Networks hotline. Let me try that again. The Thunderstorm Media Hip Hop Sports and Entertainment Networks hotline. Derek McCauley, contributor at Inside the Eagles. Welcome to the broadcast.
I'm happy to be here, man.
I'm happy to have you, man. I'm so excited I can barely talk. So let's get into it.
that makes 2 of us, man. I woke up. I got a little bit of extra sleep today to make sure I was fully rested for this. But I woke up feeling 3-2, and I woke up feeling like I'm tied for first place in the NFC East, and it's a beautiful thing.
It is a beautiful thing. I told everybody on the last broadcast, man, nobody panic. We tend to get too high after a win. We tend to get too low after a loss. And I told a story, man. When the Eagles were in the NFC championship games for 4 straight seasons, this is what I saw. I saw them lose to a St. Louis Rams team, the St. Louis Rams at the time. I wasn't disappointed by that. I was actually pretty cool after that, Derek, because I said, you know what? We weren't supposed to win that game. I didn't expect us to win that game, but I'm happy that they went in and they battled, and they looked good while they did it. So I was cool. Next season came along, we had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It was the last game in the vet, but I prepared myself for what I thought was probably going to end up happening. Donovan McNabb, as you remember in the regular season, broke his leg, came back, threw 4 touchdown passes on a broken leg. We thought it was a sprain at the time. It wasn't. He missed most of the regular season. He came back for the playoffs. He looked pretty shoddy against the Atlanta Falcons. And then against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, our fears were revealed. Tampa Bay, who had got hot at the right time, added a little offense to all that defense, and they walked into the vet and won. I wasn't disappointed by that.
They got hot enough that they could overcome the fact that everybody said they couldn't play in the cold.
Right. The one that hurt me, Derek, was this one. That third championship game against the Carolina Panthers at home. I believe for a long time that was our Super Bowl. And when I saw McNabb go down with the broken ribs, and when I saw us pretty much just fall apart after that, and then I actually went a step further and was thinking to myself, this is not going to end well. It was a 14-3 defeat. Carolina went on to the Super Bowl. That's the one that hurt me. And I was down in the dumps, man. I didn't take my own advice. I was depressed. I called out from work the next day. This is all a true story. And while I'm sitting there, it's Wednesday now, following that Sunday. My cousin calls me. He's at Chickies and Pete's in Philadelphia. He saw Troy Vincent. He saw a couple of guys on the team. And who it was, I can't remember. But I remember him telling me this. These guys are out here, and they're playing games, and they're having fun. Why are we down in the dumps? If they play on the team, and they're not upset, why are we upset, and we're just fans? From that point going forward, Derek, I've never gotten too high or too low about a win or a loss ever since, except for Super Bowl 52.
Well, my friends, you are an outlier. I give you a lot of credit, but that is far from the identity of this Philadelphia Eagles fan base.
All right. But this is my point, though, man. Now, as much as we like to get involved in everything, as much as we live and die with every play, as much as we stress out about the Green Bay game, as we did, as much as I stressed out throughout that entire Super Bowl, this is what got me. I thought about that situation with my cousin and everything, and I sat there and said, the players aren't depressed. I don't know if I can sit up here and get depressed over a win and a loss. So after losing to the Atlanta Falcons and after losing to Detroit, I sat there and said to myself, we're 1-2, but the Cowboys have beaten the Giants, they've beaten the Redskins, and they've beaten the Miami Dolphins. Everything's going to be fine. And I came on this show and I told everybody calm down. It's a long season. And here we are 2 weeks later. Everybody's feeling a whole lot better than they did 2 weeks ago. And I'm like, that's emotional energy you could have invested somewhere else. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, no doubt. I definitely agree with you. I'm just saying, I give you so much credit for actually thinking that way, just because most people just do not see it that way.
Yeah,
and it would definitely be healthier if they did. But at the end of the day, the Delaware Valley and the Tri-County area lives and dies on Eagles wins and losses. It sets the tone for everybody's entire week.
Exactly.
And that's what makes it one of the best fan bases in the world.
It is. It is.
They really legitimately care week in and week out.
Right. So let me ask you this. Now, I said all that to say this. That was the goal, Gary. But heading into 2019, for whatever reason, I was still in 2018. I was riding a little high off the Super Bowl win.
I think we all were.
So even with the slow start, I wasn't as depressed. When Wentz got hurt again, when Foles came in and the Eagles marched into the playoffs again, I'm riding a little high. I'm not taking my own advice. I'm getting emotionally invested in this again. But then after they lost and the ball goes through Alshon Jeffrey's hands and the Mercedes-Benz Superdome, I wasn't as depressed because the first thing that popped in my head was, well, we won it last year. Heading into 2019 has been different for me, Derek. I was thinking this was another chance for us to take another nice ride to another Super Bowl, and we were going to end up in Miami. How are you feeling today? You feeling like we still a Super Bowl contender, or have your thoughts changed after what you've seen over the first 5 weeks?
I'll tell you what, man, my feelings really haven't changed all that much on this team. The only thing that's really changed is I stopped looking at them as a copy of the 2017 Super Bowl team and started looking at them more as a copy of last year's team, which I don't think is necessarily a negative. Last year's team dealt with the same amount of injuries, if not more, than this team dealt with, and they overcame obstacle after obstacle to almost make it to the NFC Championship game again, had they not had that one drop pass by Alshon Jeffrey. It was just a bad luck thing. It was a weird play call, but I think this team has the resilience. I think this is a team that Philadelphia can be proud of because they do work on every single down to get the best they can get out of both sides of the ball. And I just still think it's one of the best rosters in the league, even with the injuries. You look at the people who have stepped up for this team, especially in the Jets game. People can poo-poo it and they can say, oh, it was the Jets, so it was this. That's still an NFL team out there. It might look like a varsity squad, but it's still an NFL team out there. You have Deshaun Hall coming up with sacks. You have Orlando Scandrick showing up and getting 2 fumble recoveries. He's scoring a touchdown, 10 sacks on a day. We made NFL history against that team. I don't care if it was Luke Falk back there. The defense was being mocked leading into that game. It was being picked on leading into that game. And I think we came out with something that could light a spark for that defense moving forward.
I totally agree with you. So let me ask you this then. I'm gonna borrow your expertise. Why aren't we more excited about that win?
Because it's the Jets. I think it's as simple as that. I think people got excited about the fact that we won because the Eagles winning is always a lightning rod for excitement and happiness throughout the Delaware Valley. But at the end of the day, I think Eagles fans are also reasonable enough to know, hey, we should have clobbered that team. And realistically, we should have clobbered that team even worse than we did. The offense slept walk through that game. The defense won that game for us. Not that it was ever really a question mark, but we're not Dallas fans. We weren't getting excited about beating 3 teams with a combined record of 1-8.
Yeah.
So I think people are staying nice and level-headed with it. I think we're going into this game against the Vikings still looking at this team, wondering what they are on both sides of the ball, but excited about what we saw from the defense and knowing that Carson Wentz is playing MVP quality football under center.
Good stuff there. Good stuff there. How concerned are you about the offense?
I'm not too concerned. I mean, anytime the guy that I'm most concerned about is the guy that we haven't seen since week 1, and that's Deshaun Jackson. Because I just don't believe almost anything that's coming out about him. I've thought for weeks now that he has a sports hernia.
Okay.
And it really sucks because it's one of those things where it's in the pit of my stomach that I just feel like he's not going to be back. And I hope I'm wrong, but it's one of those things where I just don't like any injury designation where the coach comes out and says, well, he's getting close, but then the media is putting out things where it's, hey, he's not going to play this week, but maybe next week. He's a guy who has an extensive injury history. He's a guy who has missed a lot of time in his career, and he's a guy that changes this offense fundamentally when he's on the field. So if we don't have him, you're looking at the 2018 offense in a roundabout sort of way with a better running game. And that's pretty much the reason why I put this team right now above the 2018 team to a degree, because they do have the ability to run the ball. And that's, as I wrote about a couple of weeks ago, Lane Johnson saying coming out of that Packers game that they had found their identity. If their identity is a strong running game, because the offensive line has really picked it up and the defensive line has really picked it up, if they can run the ball down people's throat on a weekly basis and play keep away ball with the clock, play time of possession, that's fine with me. Let Carson Wentz throw for 200 225, 250 yards, a touchdown or 2 a game. I don't need him to be Superman every week. All I care about is getting W's.
Around this part of the country, you got a big fanship toward the Clemson Tigers and the South Carolina Gamecocks. When Deshaun Jackson came out, there was some questions about whether or not teams should take him. And Dabo Swinney said, if you pass on Deshaun Watson, you're passing on Michael Jordan.
Yep, I remember that.
I think now that's turned out to be pretty prophetic. I think Deshaun is Michael Jordan.
Yeah, except all those people who talk about the 90s NBA defense. I don't know if Michael Jordan was taking quite as many hits as Deshaun Watson is back in that pocket, man. He looks like Andrew Luck 2.0 if they don't protect him quick.
Absolutely, absolutely. Comparing Carson Wentz to Deshaun Watson, I'm going to ask you 2 questions, actually. Carson Wentz has all the same physical gifts, doesn't he? He can be Michael Jordan as well, but would we rather him be Michael Jordan or we rather him be Magic Johnson and just distribute the ball as you were saying? I think you kind of touched on that, but I gotta want you to dig a little deeper.
Well, let me just jump off of that. I would rather him be Magic personally, just because Magic was he was an unselfish player.
Right.
He was a guy who was able to let his surrounding cast shine. He was a guy who would spread the ball around. He was a guy who cared about just getting the victory. That's not a knock against Michael Jordan, but I feel like in the mainstream media or in the minds of some people, they'll look at me saying Magic Johnson as, oh, well, you just want him to be a game manager. Carson Wentz is and never will be just a game manager. Carson Wentz is a special generational level talent when he's healthy on the field. If you don't believe me, go and watch him Matrix Neo style duck people. There's a compilation on YouTube. Very few people in the league can make the throws that he can. Very few people in the league can avoid pressure and step up in the pocket the way that he does and roll out. Deshaun Watson is one of the few guys in the league, while we're talking about him, that can do that exact same thing. But to answer your question, I would rather him be Magic Johnson, just because Magic Johnson elevated the players around him. He didn't have to be the star every time that he was out on the court, and I don't think Carson Wentz has to either.
We mentioned the offense. You said you're pretty fine there. You're pretty confident. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball. How are you feeling about the defense? How do you feel about Fletcher Cox? How do you feel about the secondary?
Well, it's interesting that Fletch is the guy that you brought up to me, because Fletch was the guy that low-key, when we were doing our first month disappointments, he was one of the guys that I almost wrote down for it, and I hate to do that because I love the guy. He's one of my favorite players that I've seen in all my years of watching the Eagles so far, but he just hasn't popped off the screen the way that we're used to seeing him over the past couple of years. I know that he's making the intangible differences up the middle, because obviously our run defense is second ranked in the NFL right now for a reason. I'm sure he has a lot to do with that. But overall, as a defense, I got to go back to it. Even though it was just the Jets, I think this could be a turning point for the defense as a whole. It's a unit that has a lot of youth, a unit that has a lot of injuries that they've been dealing with. It didn't have a pass rush up until this week. But to explode for 10 sacks against any team, that's saying something. There has to be something to take away from that other than, lol, that's just the Jets.
I totally agree with you. I don't think they're playing a high school team here. This is the NFL team. You got 10 sacks against an NFL team.
Well, not for nothing. A good NFL team, a Super Bowl caliber NFL team, as you were just asking me a little earlier, beats up on bad teams like the Jets.
Right.
And that's what we did. We beat up on them. It was a one-sided thing. It was mostly the defense, but we beat up on the Jets.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Eagles fans have been able to temper the emotions a little bit more, because unlike the Dallas Cowboy fans who get excited about beating teams you're supposed to win, we realize this is what's supposed to happen, and now we're looking ahead to a bigger test to see where we actually are as a franchise.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where we are right now. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm taking a little bit of your advice that you said right off the top. I'm not getting too high. I'm not getting too low. I'm staying even keel with it. We're 3-2. We're tied for the NFC East lead with Dallas right now. Dallas has shown its true colors, losing to 2 straight good teams after beating 3 teams with a 1-8 record combined. And they lost to a Packers team that we were able to beat in Green Bay, and they lost them at home. So I'm not necessarily frightened of the Dallas Cowboys right now. Right now, what we do, our identity is run the ball and stop other people from running the ball. And if Dallas is going to win football games against us, Dak Prescott's going to have to beat us. And I like our odds with that.
Let me ask you this. We talked about Fletcher Cox a little earlier. We went back and forth before we actually put that story out on Inside the Eagles about first quarter grades. I selected Derek Barnett as my biggest disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
This was the reason we got rid of Chris Long. This was the guy we're hoping takes the next step. Every time we bring him up, it seems like we're mentioning him with Reggie White because they went to the same college and because he broke Reggie White's sack record. Right. I'm more disappointed in Derek Barnett. Am I wrong for that? Talk me into it if I'm not.
No, I mean, I don't think you're wrong in being disappointed in him. I don't think that he's lived up to what we expected him to be, at least over the first 5 weeks of the season. I don't really think I would say necessarily like, oh, well, he's not going to pan out. Obviously, it's a small sample size. Plus, I mean, the dude, the play that he made in the Super Bowl, the play that he made in the NFC Championship game, the guy clearly can come up clutch when it really matters, when the lights are at their brightest. So, I mean, I'm not knocking Derek Barnett at all. The only thing that I will say about Derek Barnett that has disappointed me so far this season is he just doesn't seem disciplined enough. He's taken too many bad penalties. He's hitting people dirty. That's not the way that we play football. That's not the way that you're supposed to win games. I just would like to see him tune that up just a little bit. Maybe it's youth. I mean, he's literally only this is his second season in the league, correct?
Correct.
Second or third year in the league?
No, this is 3 for him.
This is third year in the league. Yeah. You got to know better than that. You got to know that you can't hit people like that. I know they're throwing flags all over the place for seemingly everything on Sundays now, but you can't give them a easy target like that.
Yeah.
So as far as that goes, that's my main point of disappointment with Derek Barnett. I think we discussed this when you were actually drafting up that list. My pick for that, which you disagreed with just because you didn't have expectations for the guy to begin with, was Ronald Darby, just because anytime your number one corner on your team is being picked on, like easily from sitting at home on the couch with your friends, you can see that the offensive coordinator is picking on your number one corner. It ain't good.
That's not good at all.
It's bad news.
That's terrible.
It ain't good at all.
So why did we pick him back up? Now, if memory serves me correctly, he was still supposed to be, even with all the concerns and all the question marks, he was the top-rated corner in the free agency class, and we had to have a free agent corner. So, you know, based on the fact that the guy already knew who we were, he knew the system. Was that the reason, or was there something else with it?
I think it had everything to do with the fact that he just knew the system, and he had been with this team for the past couple of years. I mean, I honestly think it just came down to something as simple as that. Jim Schwartz likes his guys. Darby clearly is one of the guys that he likes. He keeps putting them out there on number one wide receivers, despite the results consistently being the same. So, I mean, I think it just comes down to that.
Yeah. I always try to give coaches credit because I realize for them to be NFL coaches, they know more about what they're doing than we do.
Oh, absolutely.
I kind of get tired of the fan who feels like they could coach because they can play Madden really well.
Yeah, I can't even play Madden very well. I'm like a 50-50 guy myself, so I'm not trying to give anybody advice.
But at the same time, too, I don't know what Jim Schwartz is seeing. I've never seen what he's seen in Vinny Curry. I don't see what he sees in Ronald Darby. Let's go to Vinny Curry for a second. Why do we keep giving him chances? What's so great about him?
I mean, it's tough just because personally I like Vinny just because of his personality. It has very little to do with what he actually does on the football field. He was obviously part of the 2017 championship team.
Right.
When we brought Vinny Curry back, it just felt like, hey, we know this guy. He's been with us before, and he's depth. Like, that's pretty much all I thought of when we brought him in. I didn't think, oh, that's going to be a difference maker. That's going to be somebody that's going to change things. Because of the injuries that we've sustained, he's unfortunately been pressed a little bit closer to the top of the depth chart than I think anybody's really comfortable with. But I don't think Vinny Curry's necessarily a bad player. Right. I just don't think he's a difference maker, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. All right, man. So you said it when you came on. So did I. You said you woke up feeling 3-2. And you should feel 3-2. Let's get into the NFCs.
All right, let's talk about it.
We can both agree. The Redskins are toast, right? It's done. It's over, right?
Yeah, I think the Redskins are toast, and I honestly think, obviously, it might be a little early because they're not quite as bad off as the Redskins, but this is exactly what we expected coming into the season. This is a two-horse race. It's Dallas and it's us. And one of us is going to win the division, the other team. Honestly, I think Dallas is talented enough that it could easily be a wild card team. I don't really care what happened over those last two games. They still do have talent on that team, and I still think we should take them seriously. I know that's sacrilege to say, but you can never overlook an opponent, especially one that's as hated as the Dallas Cowboys are.
Right.
I think we can count out the Giants too. I just don't believe that the Giants can go on any kind of run. Daniel Jones looked great in one game. Since then, he's looked a lot more like Eli Manning with legs.
Yeah.
to me. Like he doesn't really pop off the screen the same way that he did against Tampa, and that's probably because Tampa didn't have any tape at all on him going into that game. So I don't really put a lot of stock into that initial Daniel Jones performance. It was cool for Twitter. I don't know if it's great for the Giants. We'll see.
Okay. I enjoy the fact that Daniel Snyder is still the owner of the Washington Redskins. I hope he's there for the rest of my life. This team, in my opinion, will always be bad as long as he's the owner. I remember Derek, when they picked up Jim Zorn, I think it was. He was supposed to be the offensive coordinator, but you couldn't find a coach that wanted to coach with him. So Snyder ended up having to give him the position. And as we mentioned earlier, Jay Gruden is the longest tenured coach in Daniel Snyder's era as the owner of this team. We're in good shape as long as he's the owner, right? This guy has no idea what he's doing, right?
Yeah, no. I mean, as again, another thing that might be marked as sacrilege, but I'm an Eagles fan, but I'm also just an NFL fan in general. I love following the storylines around the league, the narratives. As much as I can feel bad for a coach of a rival team, I do feel bad for Jay Gruden. His overall record isn't great with the team, but at the same time, you go back to around this time last year, they still have Alex Smith. They're not a bad football team. Trent Williams isn't holding out. There's just so much dysfunction around that team right now where they don't have anybody steering the ship other than Dan Snyder. And Dan Snyder just consistently veers them off to go over a waterfall every season. Yeah. And it's just without fail. I mean, I'm with you as an Eagles fan. I hope that he never leaves that organization. I hope that he continues to steer them down that path every year. But I do feel a little bit bad for the way that Jay Gruden had to leave this team, despite the fact that they were actually pretty good last year.
Makes sense. Makes sense. You mentioned the Giants as well. There's a little dysfunction floating around there as well, too, right? The Giants used to be the franchise and the picture of stability. What's happened there? What's going on with them?
That's a more difficult one to untangle, just because Washington is just like, it's like an exposed vein. Like you can just see exactly what's going on with Washington because they're just bearing it all to the public right now. They're so dysfunctional that you can see it from a mile away. With the Giants, they drafted Daniel Jones at 6. Everybody laughed at him. He looked good in one game. They realistically should have moved on from Eli Manning about 3 or 4 years ago. Nobody got that memo in their front office, apparently, so they just consistently underperformed to this point. I just feel like they're an old guard franchise that is very slow to catch on to new things in the league, and I don't know if it's a management thing. I don't know if it's an ownership thing with the Maras. They're just not a team that adapts well to change. And I just don't know if they're ever going to be one that is on top of like the new trend in the NFL. Like they just got Daniel Jones in there and they saw him run for 2 rushing touchdowns. And now suddenly he's some kind of phenom for doing what almost every young quarterback in the league has been doing for about 3 or 4 years now. Everybody in the league who comes out can use their legs to some degree. Even Baker Mayfield tried to do it last night. It didn't work, but he tried. You have to have some kind of dual threat capability as a young quarterback coming into the league now to actually make defenses honest. Because like Janoris Jenkins said, if we're talking about Giants players, no corner can guard somebody for 10 seconds. A play eventually breaks down. And that's why Russell Wilson is so good. That's why Mahomes is so good. That's why Wentz is so good. That's why when Dak hits his throws downfield, it's because he's able to scramble and break down coverage with his legs. Nobody can run with a receiver for that long. So I think Giants fans are seeing what everybody else in the NFL has already known for about 4 or 5 years in Daniel Jones, and they're getting really excited about it. And it's probably overblown, but it kind of is like showing your grandpa how to like work things on the internet. Like it's sitting down an elder and just being like, this is Gmail. This you're not getting real mail anymore. You're going to get these things to your mailbox electronically. And they're like, their mind is blown. Yeah. That's kind of how I look at the Giants. They're just like this old guard franchise that just isn't with it right now.
I never thought about it that way, but that's a perfect example. And now that you said that, I'm going to steal it from you.
Hey, you can have it, man.
I feel you. I definitely feel you on that one. I got
And
some great news.
That's something that I've garnered from talking to friends that are Giants fans. So like this is like inside information of just the stuff that they gripe about. Like we gripe about our issues with our team, other teams gripe about their issues. Their issue is and has been for years that they can't roll with the punches. They always just stay still for too long until they erode into the ocean and they arise anew someplace else.
Well, we can't talk about owners who are brilliant but know nothing about football without bringing up Jerry Jones. But let's talk about Stephen Jones. I don't know if you saw this yet. Stephen Jones was asked about Jason Garrett.
Okay.
They asked if his time was coming to an end. They asked if Jason Garrett was on any sort of hot seat. Stephen Jones said, absolutely not. Derek, as an Eagles fan, this is wonderful news for me. I enjoy hearing this because just like Daniel Snyder in Washington, I feel like as long as Jason Garrett is in Dallas, they'll never amount to what they could be. I'm happy. Are you?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that would make me happier is the day that Dak finally signs that multi-million-dollar extension that he wants so bad.
That's going to be great.
I mean, that tandem with Dak Prescott and Jason Garrett just reeks of mediocrity to me. They can win the NFC East every off year if they want to. Obviously, we don't want them to do that, but they're not going to win a Super Bowl with that tandem. They're just not going to do it.
Did Dak Prescott cost himself a lot of money?
I think he did.
Okay.
I think he did. I mean, it's kind of undisputed that he did. Now, granted, I don't have the mindset that Jerry Jones has. Jerry Jones has his guys, clearly, and Dak is one of the most marketable guys in the league. You see him in damn near every other NFL commercial. He's doing like yogurt commercials. It's whatever. The dude, he's a presentable face for the league, and he's the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. It comes with the territory.
Yeah, he's in one, and then Baker Mayfield and the rest of them.
Yeah, like all these guys are just in the commercials, and it's whatever. I kind of like that about Carson, the fact that Carson's just kind of low-key. I think I've seen him do a credit card commercial.
Yeah.
I think that's about it, and it was probably a local one. I don't even think it was national. Okay. But when I look at Dak Prescott, I look at a guy that has the mobility of a modern quarterback, doesn't have a great arm, doesn't really have great decision-making skills. Granted, 2 of his interceptions against Green Bay were deflections, but he just doesn't have the ability to elevate the people around him. I still think this is Ezekiel Elliott's team, which is crazy to say because a running back should not be the best player on your team in 2019. But I still do believe, and that's why I believe that we stand a very good chance matched up 1-for-1 against the Dallas Cowboys, because if you can take away their running game and force Dak Prescott to make 40, 45, 50 passes in a game, he becomes Cam Newton.
That's very interesting. Now explain that one to me. Go ahead.
Well, it's something that I've always noticed about Cam Newton. Games where Cam Newton throws the ball more than like 35 times, somewhere around there. Basically, if you're relying on Cam Newton's arm, even pre-injuries to his shoulder, to win you games, you're not going to win. More often than not. Cam Newton's dual threat capability was, hey, this dude can take off, built like a tank, and run for a 70-yard rushing touchdown on you if you disrespect him. Yeah. But he is not going to kill you through the air. And I think that that's the same thing with Dak Prescott. Dak's had a couple of good throws this year, most of them against the aforementioned bad teams that they played in the first 3 weeks. And I'm not going to act like the Jets and the Washington Redskins that we beat were amazing franchises either. They're not good. But we do have the best win of any NFC East team so far this year, and that is a win on the road in Lambeau Field against the Green Bay Packers. There isn't a single team in the division that has a better win than that, and Dallas just got creamed by that team.
Good observation. I love the Cam Newton reference. I also would throw a little Baker Mayfield in that. I think Baker Mayfield and Dak Prescott are the same dude.
I think Dak's a way better athlete than Baker Mayfield is. That's the one thing I'll give Dak.
He's definitely a better athlete. Both of them can do things athletically that no other quarterback can do. Both of them are extremely gifted. Both of them can be successful in the NFL, but both of them have to have a lot of help. Everything's got to line up perfectly for these guys to win and win consistently. So I see them as the same guy.
Yeah, I mean, you have to look at Baker last night. I mean, you're looking at a quarterback that he has the arm. His athleticism is obviously less than Dak's, like we said, less than Carson, less than Deshaun Watson. He's not able to scramble his way out of trouble when his offensive line breaks down. And because of the moves that they made in the offseason, that offensive line is breaking down nearly every play.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if you have Jarvis Landry, OBJ. You could throw Julio Jones in that offense too. They're still not beating most teams with that offensive line.
Right. Or with Freddie Kitchens.
Fourth and 9 draw play. That's all I got to say about Freddie Kitchens.
All right, we do it every Monday, man, on ITI. Let's do it here. NFC's power rankings. After 2 straight losses by the Dallas Cowboys, after 2 straight wins by the Philadelphia Eagles, one of which in dominating fashion, the other, as you mentioned, the best win of any NFC's team this year, I put the Philadelphia Eagles back in the top spot in my NFC's power rankings. I have the Cowboys at 2. I have the Giants at 3. And I put the Redskins at 4. I think they're just playing for another top pick in the next draft. Disagree with any of that?
No, I think that's pretty much as accurate as you can make it right now. Like, I don't even know if there's really a dispute to it. Even Dallas fans, I don't even think you can really disagree with it. You have 2 losses against good football teams. We've won 2 weeks in a row. The big thing for us is that bad Jets team that we just whooped on, well, right. Dallas gets to play them this week. So Dallas is going to win this week. That's a spoiler. I'll give you that ahead of time.
Yeah.
Dallas is going to win this week. We need to keep pace against a Vikings team that, again, is a run-first football team. The Jets came into Philadelphia this week with Le'Veon Bell in their backfield, and we knew that he was their only weapon that they could actually do any kind of damage with. Granted, we didn't assume like a 5th special teams wide receiver was going to do an end around for a touchdown, but whatever. If we're able to stop the run effectively against the Vikings, we will also beat the Vikings. I don't care if it's on the road. The only reason we lost to the Vikings last year is because we had the Michael Bennett ridiculous roughing call against Kirk Cousins when they were down in the goal line last year. I think this is a beatable team. I don't think that the Vikings have an identity right now. I think if they do have an identity, it's dysfunction. And the way you beat dysfunction is by being a buttoned-up, put-together football team. And I think that's what the Eagles have been under Doug Peterson throughout his entire tenure.
You're not worried about Kirk Cousins at all. You know, he's had success about us in the past.
I mean, it's a double-edged sword because I don't want to come on here and start singing the praises of Kirk Cousins just because he's had success against us. I don't think that he's a very good quarterback. Okay. At the end of the day, obviously, any game that you're playing against a team that was favored to be in the playoffs, like the Vikings, a team that we've had recent history against, good history, I just think it's as simple as you got to stop the run. If you can get back there, if this pass rush really got energized from that Jets game and you can get back there on Kirk Cousins, this is a guy who got sacked 3 times against the Giants this past week.
True.
The Giants.
True.
Like you want to talk about varsity football teams, like they're just a couple steps above what the Jets are bringing to the table right now. So if you can get sacked 3 times by the Giants defensive line, our guys should be back there early and often against that offensive line because Minnesota hasn't had an offensive line in years.
Yeah. Sam Darnold, they just announced it.
Darnold, he's going to play.
Does that change your opinion about the outcome of that one at all?
No, not really. I mean, it's going to be his first game back off of mono. Mm-hmm. I don't see. Like, I think they might move the ball a little bit better because they have an actual NFL quarterback back there. But at the same time, I think Dallas is just going to be pissed off that they got kicked around for 2 weeks straight, and they're just going to take out a lot of frustration on that poor Jets team.
Mm-hmm. All right, fair enough.
I would love to sit here and tell you that the Jets could pull off an upset and anything can happen any given Sunday, but I just don't think it's this Sunday.
All right. We've done the NFC East, as we do on ITI every Monday. Let's go to NFL Power Rankings.
Let's do it.
I'm going to give you my top 10. Number 1. This should be no surprise to anybody. I've got the New England Patriots.
Shocker.
5-0.
Stop the presses.
I look at their schedule, Derek. I can't find another loss. Are we potentially working on another perfect regular season?
I don't think so. I mean, I actually wrote about that in a different article a little while back, even just to start the year. And this was under the assumption that Antonio Brown was still going to be on the team. This was with Gronk rumors going all over the place, who Gronk apparently is going to be a Fox analyst now. So good for him. I just don't think that they can go 16-0 because it's so incredibly difficult to do it. I just don't think that they can get through. They have a middle of their schedule where they're going to be playing us. They're going to be playing Dallas. They're going to be playing better teams than just the AFC East fodder.
Yeah.
And, I mean, other than their win against Pittsburgh, realistically in week 1, I don't think that they've beaten a legitimately good offense on paper. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, they played the Bills, and the Bills damn near beat them if it wasn't for a dirty helmet-to-helmet hit on Josh Allen that knocked him out of the game. So as far as I'm concerned, the Patriots were lucky to get out of Western New York by the skin of their teeth because they had to play against Matt Barkley for the last, 10 minutes of the game.
Gotcha.
Still number 1, though.
Yeah.
Undefeated. Got to be number 1.
One of my DJs here is saying that I screwed that up. I need to do it in reverse order and do it like a countdown. So let's do that.
Well, I think everybody listening automatically assumed that New England was going to be at number 1, so it's not too much of a spoiler.
Not too much of a spoiler there. All right. At 10, I have the 3-2 Dallas Cowboys.
Okay.
I expect them to beat teams they're supposed to win against. I expect them to lose against good teams. I don't think they're so bad they need to fall out of the top 10. But I don't think they're so good that I need to put them up in front of the other 9 teams. At 9, I got the 4-0 San Francisco 49ers. Now, that's going to set a lot of people. Now, I understand that. But I'm not totally ready. Though I believe in Kyle Shanahan, I'm not totally ready to get behind Jimmy Garoppolo. They got speed everywhere. They're great on offense. They're great on defense. But I want to see them play the Rams next week. I want to see them play the Seattle Seahawks before I place them a little higher on the list.
I don't disagree with you. I will just jump in for a quick second. I do 100% buy into Kyle Shanahan. I mean, Kyle Shanahan was a phenom play caller with the Atlanta Falcons when they went to that Super Bowl. They didn't get the job done, but the dude knows what he's doing. I mean, he's always had great running backs, whether it was the 2-headed monster of Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman when he was in Atlanta, or the 3-headed monster that he has now with Breida, who I think is by far their best running back, and he was on display fully last night. Raheem Mostert, of all people, a guy who fantasy players know about, and Tevin Coleman, an old friend that they brought into the building. I don't think there's a team in the league that I would love to watch the Eagles play more right now than the 49ers, just because it would be such a strength versus strength matchup. It would literally just be a team that lives and dies by the run game 100% and has figured out every defense that they've played so far against a team that has yet to give up more than 50 or 60 yards on the ground against a running back this year.
Cool. You and I are in total agreement about Kyle Shanahan. And also remember, too, he made Kirk Cousins look good in D.C.
He sure did.
Number 8, I got the Minnesota Vikings. This team confuses me. I don't know if they're great or decent. I know they're not terrible. I know they can be exposed from time to time. I don't think there's a football fan on the planet who believes on them by the time playoff time comes around. But decent in quarterback. They basically taken their quarterback and said, you can play a supporting cast role. We'll rely on the defense. We'll rely on the running game, and we'll win it anyway. All they're asking Kirk Cousins to do is just not screw anything up. So I got them at 8. I got the Eagles at 7. I had them at 7 last week. I didn't see enough in their most recent performance to place them a little bit higher. Mm-hmm. And I got them at 7 because the other 6 teams on this list, I'm not sure how they'd fare against them. So let's just continue. I got the Rams at 6. And again, I went back and forth as to whether or not I should put the Eagles at 6 and the Rams at 7. But I'm feeling like right now, if we're doing a power ranking right now, I don't know if this Eagles team right now can beat the Rams right now. So I got them at 6.
I mean, I don't disagree with you fully. I just look at this Rams team and I look at a team that isn't really overpowering anybody. Like, they put up a lot of points. Jared Goff had to throw the ball 70 times in a loss to the Bucs this year. I mean, the Bucs have been surprising people because they actually have the only rush defense that's better than us in the league right there. Now they're number 1, which is probably a shock to most people that are listening to this, but they are actually that good up the middle. I just don't see it with the Rams outside of the flashy names that they have. Like, Cooper Kupp consistently gets better seemingly every time I watch him. Every week, that dude's a monster. I like Robert Woods a lot. Brandon Cooks is what he is. He's kind of a Deshaun Jackson downfield 9-route type of guy. But I don't see it with Jared Goff. I really have never seen it with Jared Goff. He had a great season last year, but I just don't see him as a guy that should be put on the same level as Watson, Wentz, Mahomes. Like, he's not that guy, but he's talked about like that guy because he's the quarterback of the Rams.
He is. But he's that next tier down. He's in that category with Matt Ryan and those guys, to me.
Yeah, I think that's a good comparison. I think they're very similar quarterbacks. I think they're guys that they can make the throws. They do have good arms. I don't think they have great instincts, as evidenced by the fact that Matt Ryan has thrown way too many interceptions so far this year for Atlanta. But I don't know. I just don't. Other than like Aaron Donald, like the apparent absolute superstar level talent that they have, I think the league is starting to solve Sean McVay. And I think he's grappling with that right now.
Really?
And I think they are, just because you have 2 straight losses. You lost to Tampa and you lost to Seattle. Granted, the Seattle game was on a last-second kick, but that's a divisional game that a year ago the Rams win. The Rams swept the Seahawks last year.
Right.
And they couldn't take care of business on a Thursday night game where, to be honest with you, they needed to bounce back. And they really didn't look good for the majority of the game. I thought they looked sloppy. I thought Seattle was by far the better team for the majority of the game. And I was happy that Seattle won that game. I feel like they deserved it.
Yeah. Good stuff. At 5, Derek, I had the Kansas City Chiefs.
At 5. Wow.
I had them at 2 all season long. And some
that
people
Colts
don't say
loss
I'm
really. Yeah.
Mahomes is mortal. And at this point, there are some teams I think are just playing better at this point. Now, next week, this could change. They can go back to 2. I've had them at 2 all season. But Andy Reid looked confused. That defense is terrible. And I think we figured out if somebody can limit Mahomes or just play ball control and keep them off the field, Kansas City's got some problems.
I think that second part is the more important one. Keeping the ball out of Mahomes' hands, I think, is more reasonable for any NFL team to do than limit him. Because I don't think there's too many teams in the league that can limit Patrick Mahomes. He's just a special talent.
True.
He was limping. Obviously, they were getting a good pass rush on him the entire game. The main takeaway I have from that game honestly had almost nothing to do with the Chiefs, because I already kind of just assumed that the Chiefs are going to be fine. They're going to make the playoffs. Their defense has to get better, because people were talking about, if they get home field advantage at Arrowhead again. We saw that movie last year. It didn't work out for them.
Right.
Even against a 42-year-old Tom Brady, Bill Belichick is going to take that defense apart. It just doesn't matter. The Patriots win that game 9 times out of 10 in my mind still this year. Mm-hmm. But the main takeaway that I took from that game was, God, I miss Frank Reich.
I do too.
I miss Frank Reich so much on our sideline, because I just watch his play calling, and he has that same, I tweeted this out during the game, he has that same ballsy, go for it on 4th down type of mindset that Doug Peterson has, but he's a lot more innovative than Doug.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that's been missing from the 2018 and 2019 offenses for the Eagles that we had in spades in 2017.
Yeah. Very good observation. At 4-3, Derek, I got two teams who have scared me for several years as an Eagles fan.
Mm-hmm.
I got the Seahawks at 4. I got the Saints at 3. Two teams that I believe can consistently beat Philadelphia if they see each other on the field. Russell Wilson needs to start getting some MVP talk.
Oh, dude, I agree 100%. Russell Wilson, after Mahomes' performance over the past 2 weeks, I think is the undeniable MVP.
Yeah. New Orleans. This team, I was just saying, can they just hold serve while Drew Brees is out? They're 3-0. And they don't even look good half the time, and they're winning. The same way we talk about Philly all season, the same way we talk about a lot of these other teams. If New Orleans can put it all together, and they haven't yet, and they're 4-1, this team could be a legitimate Super Bowl contender.
Yeah,
they could represent the NFC.
Yeah, I mean, they check all of the boxes. You have the coach who's already won it before. You have Sean Payton. You have a chip on your shoulder from 2 straight years of it not going your way. You now get to rally around a backup quarterback who has a great story in and of himself. I mean, who doesn't like Teddy Bridgewater? That guy rallied back from an injury that would have left anybody on the sidelines high and dry. He was already earmarked to never play in the league again, and here he is throwing for 4 touchdowns on Sunday afternoon. This is the most resilient football team in the league, and they've shown it the past 2 weeks. They're not just really good, they're dangerous.
Yeah.
Like, I agree with you 100%. Like, if you play the Saints at home in particular, it's 9 times out of 10 they're going to beat you. They're just that good.
Yeah. And number 2 on the list, man. Some people say it's an overreaction, and I preach against overreactions, but I got Green Bay at 2. Again, this whole thing could change next week, but right now I'm like, can Seattle or LA or Kansas City, can they beat this team? And I'm not sure that they can.
Yeah, I mean, this is honestly the only placement on your list that I take any kind of issue with.
Go ahead.
Because I just don't think that the Packers are as great as number 2, but I don't think they're bad enough that they should slip too many spots. I would personally put Seattle and New Orleans above them, though.
Cool.
Just because I don't really think too highly of Matt LaFleur. I don't know what's going on with their offense, because their offense has sputtered over the first month of the season. Like, they broke free against us because everybody was breaking free against us in the first month of the year. Aaron Rodgers was able to basically just do whatever he wanted. Devontae Adams, before he had turf toe, would have gotten like 400 yards receiving on us. He had like 180 at the end of the first quarter, it seemed like. So, I mean, I think that they can take apart teams that have bad defenses or growing defenses or young defenses. I don't know if they can march into CenturyLink Field to play Seattle and beat Seattle. I don't know if they can go to the Superdome and beat the Saints, especially when Drew Brees is back. I mean, we were able to run the ball on the Packers. Alvin Kamara will surely be able to run the ball on the Packers. And Chris Carson looks like one of the diamonds in the rough of the league that no one's talking about. Chris Carson is one hell of a running back, and he doesn't get anywhere near the amount of credit that he deserves. He's like a Matt Breida type guy. He just flies consistently under the radar and is great almost every time I watch him play.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. So we've done our NFC East and our NFL Power Rankings. And it's your first time on Thunderstorm Media, so we got to put you through the gauntlet. Give me time bomb. It's a long time bomb.
Yeah, I feel like I could have gotten out of here by now.
I need a faster time bomb sound effect, by the way, while y'all are listening. All right, man. An Eagles-centric gauntlet. 20 questions, the Thunderstorm way. The lightning round. Are you ready?
Oh, boy. I hope I am.
All right, let's get it. Cue the music. The gauntlet begins. Derek McCauley's in it. I'm going to let you start your own Eagles franchise. Who you taking as your quarterback? Randall, Donovan, or Wentz?
Randall, Donovan, or Wentz? I still think that Donovan's the best quarterback in franchise history. I'm going to go with Donovan.
All right. Lincoln Financial Field or Veteran Stadium?
Oh, it's the Link.
Kelly Green or Midnight Green?
Kelly.
Fly Eagles Fly or Dreams and Nightmares by Meek Mill?
Fly Eagles Fly. Got to go with the classic.
All right. Favorite Eagle of all time?
It's B-Dog.
Least favorite Eagle of all time?
Freddie Mitchell.
Good one. Player you hated to see go?
Player that, well, I mean, I didn't see him go. This is a historic one, but Reggie White.
That's a good one. That was mine. One player you would like to see this team sign if they could?
One player that I'd like to see the Eagles bring in?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a huge name. I was riding high on the Minkah Fitzpatrick train before he ended up going to the Steelers. If I could pick anybody in the league, period, to bring in, Bobby Wagner.
That's a good one. You mentioned Minkah Fitzpatrick. I'm going to go with Jadeveon Clowney. Did they miss that on that one?
I don't think they did. I mean, it's obviously easy to react to the fact that they didn't have a lot of sacks leading up to this explosion of 10 sacks that we had over the past week, but Jadeveon Clowney has never been a sack guy. Jadeveon Clowney is a big-time pressure guy, and I think he's a guy who doesn't have a high motor. Like, I think you talked about this before. He's a guy who decides which plays he's going to give 100% on, and I think Philly would rip him to shreds for that.
Right.
Like, I just don't think that motor, that mentality that he's had since college would work in his favor with the Philly media or the Philly fans. If he took plays off here, people would rain boos upon him regardless of whether he was good or not.
Yeah, remember Ricky Waters?
Yeah, I mean, he would get that same treatment. If he didn't play hard, I mean, that's what I appreciate about Philly fans, and that's what I appreciate makes me proud to be an Eagles fan in general, is just we appreciate players that line up with the identity of the city. Blue collar, grab your lunch pail, go out there, work your ass off for us. Play your hardest. If you play your hardest, you put everything on the field, blood, sweat, tears, all the cliches. We are not going to be mad at you when you lose.
Yeah.
We'll be mad at a team when it looks like they gave up.
Exactly. Favorite current Eagle?
I actually got to go with Darren Sproles. I love the little guy. I love the fact that he's just like the human pinball. You can never seemingly bring him down.
Cool.
Least favorite current Eagle? That's kind of tough, man. I mean, I don't know if there's anybody on the team that I actively dislike.
Fair enough.
Do I have to pick somebody?
No, you don't.
Okay.
Rank these coaches: Buddy Ryan, Andy Reid, Doug Peterson.
Got to go Doug, Andy, and Buddy. I think Buddy's an easy choice for 3, though.
Yeah. Brian Westbrook.
That's a little bit of
McCoy.
a layup. Westbrook or McCoy?
Yeah.
Give me Shady. I love B West, but give me Shady.
T.O. or Deshaun.
Give me T.O.
Rank these teams in the order that you hate them: the New York Giants, the Dallas Cowboys, the Washington Redskins.
Cowboys, Giants, Skins. I never really have any animosity other than like game weeks. I mean, full disclosure, my mom's been a Redskins fan her entire life. So I grew up in a household where that was like the fun rivalry Sunday game that we would do, like a playful kind of thing. So like I've never really had any real beef with Washington other than the games that we play against them. I get legit, but like obviously the Dallas and the Giants thing is real.
Gotcha. Favorite Eagles moment?
Miracle at the Meadowlands Part 2. It's that or winning the Super Bowl. Like those are pretty much just right there for me.
Yeah. Least favorite Eagles moment?
Rondé shutting down the vet.
Yep. Biggest disappointment so far this season?
Biggest disappointment so far this season. Honestly, this might surprise people. I think it's Zach Ertz. I think from watching the offense, the fact that he hasn't been involved nearly as much or hasn't popped off the screen. He's kind of like the offensive version of Fletcher Cox to me right now, where he scored a touchdown, our only passing touchdown or receiving touchdown this past week, and that was great. But that was his first touchdown of the entire season so far.
Yeah, sure.
So it's kind of weird to me that this dude's coming off of breaking Witten's single season reception record, and he just hasn't seemingly jumped off the page so far this season. So I'm really hoping that they can continue to get him more involved down in the red zone, get him a couple more touchdowns. Right now with Deshaun Jackson out, I love Alshon, but Ertz and Wentz have that special connection.
I totally agree with you on that. I thought he'd take a step back because they added so many weapons, but I didn't see this.
Yeah, in the absence of weapons, he still hasn't really had an insane year so far. Obviously, a lot of room left to go, but if you're asking for a surprising disappointment, I would say that Zach Ertz fits that mold.
Mm-hmm. You talked about layups. I'm going to give you another one. Comeback player of the year.
Oh, it's Brandon Brooks. I mean, I wrote about the guy. Iron Man.
Predicted score of the next game.
Let's see. Vikings, Eagles in Minnesota. Think it's going to be close. Give me the Birds 24, Vikings 20.
All right. So we got the Birds winning. You said you got the Cowboys winning. So it looks like we're still tied after 6 weeks of football, 4-2 each.
Oh, yeah, we're cruising right towards that battle for first place.
That brings us to question 20. That brings us to the game on Sunday Night Football, if I'm not mistaken. Cowboys, Eagles. Who you got?
Got to go with the Birds, man. Like I said, I mean, I'm not trying to be – this isn't a fan pick. This is me trying to be as objective as I possibly can. I need Dallas to show me that they can actually beat a good team, and I consider us to be a good team. So far, they've struck out 2 times in a row. They can beat the Jets if they want this week. They can whoop them even worse than we whooped them. That's not going to impress me. If they actually want me to believe that they can beat us, they're going to have to come in and do it. Ric Flair said, to be the man, you got to beat the man. So if you're going to come in and you're going to beat the Philadelphia Eagles, then do it. As of right now, I don't see any evidence that they can. Same roster as last year. Sure, they swept us last year, but this doesn't look like the same Cowboys team that I saw last year. And I think that we're going to be able to stop the run effectively, like we've done throughout the first 5 weeks of the season. And if we're able to stop Zeke Elliott in his tracks, something that we haven't been able to do in years past, and we force Dak Prescott to have a Cam Newton game where he throws it 35, 40, 45 times, I think that works in our favor, even with our secondary still growing.
Cool. Drop a bomb for Derek McCauley. He's completed the goal.
Thank you. You're too kind.
We appreciate it, man. It's been a great show.
Dude, I've thoroughly enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, we definitely gonna get you back on, man. We got to get you on a Thunderstorm, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'd love to, man. Just let me know anytime.
All right, definitely. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to Derek McCauley. If you tuned in late, Derek, go ahead and give me social media.
You can follow me on Twitter at Derek Zoolander. That's zeros, not O's. So DEREK Z00LANDER. And you can read all of my articles about the Eagles, of course, only at Inside the Eagles.
Cool. Get that man a standing ovation.
Thank you. Once again, far too kind.
We appreciate it, man. We appreciate it. Had so much that I wanted to get into you, but just wanted to let you know you're a valuable addition to the ITI family. You're the type of guy that Justin and I have been looking for. Shout out to Justin, by the way. But you're the type of guy that we've been looking for. You're one of the greatest writers we have over there. You're brilliant. Keep doing what you do. We're blessed to have you.
Hey, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right, no problem at all. No problem at all. Ladies and gentlemen, that wraps it. That's another edition of BirdGang Weekly. We got Minnesota on Sunday. Are you worried? We're not. We return to the location where the Philadelphia Eagles won their first ever Super Bowl. U.S. Bank Stadium in Minneapolis. God, I wish Prince was still living. Start up the old school bus. We go out with the spinners.